Search Engine Journal. And with me today, I have Amanda Jordan of RicketyRoo on the SEJ show to talk about local search, Google Maps, Google Local, business profiles, et cetera, et cetera. Hey, Amanda, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. It's really a pleasure to have you on again. I think it's been about a year since we did the show last time, and a lot has changed in more ways than one. So, could you update our viewers, listeners, etc., a little bit about yourself, what you're doing right now, and anything that changed in the past year?
Sure. So my name is Amanda Jordan. I am the director of digital strategy at RicketyRoo. We're a great agency. We focus on local clients. It's a great place to work. I really enjoy working with the team there. I really enjoy our clients. It's been a blast, and that's a really recent change for me. I switched from my previous agency in December. So I'm a new
Oh,
member of the
wow.
team. Yeah, but it's been like really fun, and I really like being in an agency that's kind of young, so I get to kind of um, guide where things are, how deliverables look, how we communicate with clients, how we tell the story of the data and what we're doing and why we're doing it. So it's very exciting. And then, of course, there's a ton of things happening with Google in the last year, right? Especially Google Maps. Local has changed a lot even in the last month. So there's always a lot to talk about with local, and I'm excited to be here today.
Cool. That's awesome. And it's good to hear that you're able to kind of lead the charge on at the new team at RicketyRoo as well. So that's a nice feeling to be able to guide strategy and change things and make sure you're doing it right. So that's great to hear. That's great to hear. Um, in terms of changes on the Google Maps side that happened in the past year, what do you think were the most impactful ones that helped, or maybe just kind of changed the way people are doing their local search marketing?
I think there's been a ton of changes related to reviews. That was something that I found
Mhm.
really interesting because reviews were already prevalent, but somehow they found new ways to make them pop more and make them more noticeable and important in search results. That's one of the things that I always pay attention to, especially because a lot of my clients are in like service-based industries. So those reviews are extremely important for their reputation. I know that there's been a ton of things with ads showing up in the Google Maps app and things like that. There's also the changes
Mhm.
that they've been making to the local search display itself. So, like how they show up in search results has changed in the last month or so, and what that looks like and what that means too. And then, of course, local search ads becoming like a bigger part of what's going on with local SEO and impacting more of what the search look like as well. And it being expanded to other industries. So there's like a lot of stuff that happened in the last year. I would say most of it is for the better, just because um, my opinion is that a lot of the times local as far as updates from Google gets kind of left behind, but I think COVID has really driven the purpose and the need for um, Google My Business to be a lot stronger of a presence in search results because people are shopping more local now. That is a people need to know if a place requires mass, if or what they're doing to help mitigate issues with COVID and things like that, or if their hours are changing or a lot different now. Um,
Yeah.
and I think this year, because there's so many, we're like every time I speak at something, I feel like we're at the height of COVID. Now that we're at another height of COVID,
Yes,
there is
true.
likely going to be some other changes because it, it, there's issues across the board. There's issues with places not having enough employees. Like there's
Mm.
so many people are catching COVID right now that there's businesses that are shorthanded that likely need to update their hours and haven't really thought about that in Google My Business yet, or that their hours have changed significantly, or the way they interact with their customers have changed significantly. And Google My Business or Google Business Profile, as it is now, another more recent change. that's a good way to communicate those changes to your customers so that they know what to expect. But yeah, I think that we're going to see a lot more changes still this year, because I really think last quarter of last year is when they really start putting in some interesting tests and things. Like I
Mhm.
remember in October we saw like a 5-pack for some search terms, and
Yep.
it's been a while since we've seen those. So who knows what? And now we see that there's a different look to the pack altogether. And I'm guessing they're testing some things, and who knows what's going to end up sticking and what's going to be revised one way or another in the next upcoming months. So it's going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah, you bring up a couple of really good points. First of all, it just occurred to me that we're in year 2 of COVID, and or we're just getting over year. No, it's 2 years. Yeah, it's 2 years. It's our 2-year anniversary. We're getting to the point almost of 2 years of lockdown. To your
Mm-hmm.
point, I think when a lot of people talk about the changes that have occurred within digital marketing and COVID, they talk about e-commerce, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then to an extent, local is a hybrid of
Mm-hmm.
e-com and showing up, right? Getting there. So we've had curbside become
Mm-hmm.
a big deal, right? That was kind of starting a little bit. I remember at
Yeah.
Walmart there was some curbsides, but like now it's like the whole entire parking lot is curbside, or everywhere you go.
Yeah.
There's curbside, there's app ordering, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's either there's BOPIS, right? Buy online, pick up in store, right? To
Mm-hmm.
save with shipping costs, and or buy online, pick up curbside. And
Mm-hmm.
then the ability, to your point, have the hours changed. How, you know, one thing I would really like to see from a staffing perspective is what is your capacity,
Yeah.
right? Like if you're going to a restaurant, and I'm gonna get selfish for a second. I'll stand outside of a restaurant. I'll go to Chili's or Cheesecake Factory. I'll walk into Chili's, and I'll see that the bar's full of people, right? So I'm
Mm-hmm.
not gonna sit there because and then I go to the hostess. I'm like, the host or the hostess. I'm like, well, we need a table for 3, and they're like, oh, it's a 40-minute wait. I'm like, well, you have an entire section of your restaurant that has empty tables, and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
well, and then you realize, oh, it's COVID. Oh, there's not enough staff. Oh, that's what's going on. So it'd be good to
Right.
kind of know ahead of time. And there's been a lot of additions, and to your point too, with temperature checks, whether or not wearing masks,
Mm-hmm.
this and that on the COVID side. It's all applicable. So how often would you recommend someone actually goes in and updates their Google business profile to see what Google is giving them the opportunities to do or to add within that profile?
Yeah. Honestly, based on last year, I would check every month. Like last
Mhm,
year was wild. I think it is worth it to check every month just to see if there's just to do some cleanup. If you're doing regular Google posts, when you're going in there to do your post, just go ahead and check on those things in there as well.
mhm.
And just make sure there's nothing new that applies to your business that you need to update for. And then when there's something like an hour change, go ahead and update that immediately. I would think if you have something that's happening and it's an update to your policy related to COVID or your hours, that should be something that you should go ahead and take care of immediately if you can. Um, just on the topic of like capacity and stuff like that, something that I've personally even thought about recently is like I wish Google's ability to tell you like what hours the business is usually busy for local
Mhm.
businesses. I would love for that to be updated for what's going on right now, because it is not necessarily applicable. That data that they're using is not necessarily that much very applicable right now because things are different.
The
And
foot
just like
traffic data?
yeah, yeah, I would love to see that be updated so that like we have an idea. Like what if we just
Mhm.
want to go to the movies and we don't want to avoid one of the most busy show times, like we can if we can. That would be useful for something like that. If you want to go to a restaurant and you want to see like when they're likely to be the busiest, and you don't want that historical data, but you want to know like, okay, how has it been in the last year? When are they the busiest only? Just things like that that would make it easier to make decisions. I think Google could possibly help with that just by making sure like those type of data points are almost live, if possible.
That's an interesting point for a couple of reasons. Like I know pre-COVID, I I worked from home and no one else seemed to work from home. So I'm like, ha ha ha, suckers, I'm working from home. I'm going to go to the bank at
Mhm.
11 a.m. when no one else is there. I'm going to go to the UPS store at 1 p.m. when no one else is there.
Right.
And now I go and it's the exact opposite. So
Mhm.
having that data updated could be quite useful on that end. And you brought up something as well when you're you said, I think you said when you're logging in to update your posts. So
Mhm.
how important is it for someone that's managing Google business profiles to utilize things like posts,
Mhm.
offers, things like that? Everything that's within the business profile. Does it give you? Does updating your posts give you an advantage over your competition who may not be doing so?
Absolutely. Visually, especially. If
Hmm.
there's something there visually that makes your profile stand out, that's to your benefit. I would use posts, especially for special offers, especially if you're a restaurant or a business type where visuals are really important. And like offers, like events, if they're applicable, updates to COVID. Policies in your business, essentially like social media posts. They're not going to get the same amount of engagement. I would
Right.
not recommend that someone like hire someone specifically like as a Google Post manager or anything like that. But it's good just to have something up there that's recent and current, just because it'll help you stand out. And it's very easy just to go look and see if your competitors are doing posts or not. Just look for your search terms, look at your competitors, look at their Google My business profile, see if they have any posts there that are recent or not. And if they don't, that's something that they're missing out on that you can capitalize on. And just to go with that, products and services too. I see that a lot of businesses aren't using products because it doesn't technically apply, but it's
Right.
another place where you can add images to go along with the content related to your business. And you can also add like a little blurb and have it linked to that page on your website with more information about that service or product. So even when it doesn't directly apply, there's no ding or punishment from Google for trying that out and putting things that are loosely products there. It's not going to hurt you in any way. I can see that only being an advantage, especially if your competitors aren't currently doing it. I have had clients that are like apartment complexes or custom home builders put plans and photos of houses and things like that in that section. And it just makes their business profile more interactive and interesting for people who are searching.
That is really interesting. That is really interesting. And we were talking about this a little bit before we went live. But have you ever tinkered with the ability to build a website within Google My Business or the
N-
Google Business Profiles, or know anyone who has?
Not intention. I think I've seen where someone did a case study where they wanted to see if there was a difference. Like, is there some type of benefit that Google gives if you build a Google business profile website versus building another website? And there really isn't. The Google business profile, that website just takes the information from the business profile and puts it in a not very attractive template. So I would advise against it, especially if you like. You should get a custom website, personalized, specific content to your business, to your clientele, to your geography, and try to make it as a personalized as experience as possible. And of course, at least that Google Business Profile website, when you first get it, does not have content that suffices for ranking either. So definitely not the best strategy. I think what I saw was people were using it as some type of link building um,
Mm,
scheme because it is on the. I think it was at one point at the on .google.com or something like that. It was
right.
on a Google subdomain. Yeah, so there was some benefit,
A
like they felt like
DA
yeah,
100.
yeah. There was some benefit they felt like they were getting there, but I believe the end of the study showed that there was no real benefit of doing it that way, of course, and building a custom website that's specific to your business and not on that template. So yeah, would not recommend it.
So you had mentioned that one of the most impactful changes of 2021 in Google local updates was reviews,
Mhm.
customer reviews. Um, what ways do you recommend businesses utilize to motivate their maybe their customers that are having a positive experience to leave reviews? Because we all know that reviews tend to attract folks that have maybe had a negative experience,
Right.
right? But what are some ways that businesses can motivate their customers to leave a positive review, especially on Google?
Yeah. So, what I found to be the most successful is just to ask. One of my previous clients was an energy company, and no one likes their energy company, no matter how great they may
And
be. Even if they're the cheapest one in town and you never have an issue, you still don't like them. You're kind of just dealing with them. But they went from like a 2.1 rating to a 4.0, and we just started asking when people were in chat support and they had a and at
oh,
the end of chat support we started having the agents ask them if they would like to leave a review on Google. We started adding it to emails where they had like a actual interaction with another person. What I found works the best is to ask for reviews when there's an actual interaction with another person,
mhm,
versus when it's like, hey, you've been to us a month ago. Can you leave us a review now? That's not going to be as
right.
impactful as to looking someone in the face and them asking you to do something that'll help their business. I think that's probably the most impactful thing to do. But I am a big believer in not creating extra workflows if you don't have to. So I would say look at the touch points you already have with your customers and look for where you can ask for a review within those. Well, like when are those times where they're happy with their service? Because I try to do it within Google's guidelines. I don't do any of this like filtering out people who want to leave a negative review or
Right.
anything like that. It's just like you should have enough data to know when are people the happiest with us. Those are the times we should be asking for a review. If they want to leave a negative review, then they're perfectly allowed to do that. Like we're not keeping them from doing that, but we're making sure we're reaching out at the place where it benefits us the most, while not deterring anyone from leaving a negative review if they want to.
It's interesting because most customer service calls I think I'm on, whether it's with
Hmm.
Spectrum or AT&T or whatever, right before the call starts, they're like, "Would you like to stay on afterwards? Press 1 if you'd like to stay on afterwards to take a short survey," you know,
Yeah,
or like if I go to the I don't know, Panda or something, and they're like, "Oh, you can win a $100 gift certificate if you go at the bottom of this receipt and go to this website and fill out the survey." I know people have actually done that and won. I
yeah,
I just don't
yeah,
the survey typically doesn't make it home with me. But point being, I mean, the receipt typically doesn't make it home with me. It disappears somewhere on the way home. But
hmm,
point being is that I never really thought of that as an opportunity to get someone to go to leave a review, right? I mean, that
hmm,
data is impactful internally, I'm sure,
hmm,
and probably leads to other emails that go out a day later, and maybe you find it 5 days later in your inbox. And you're like, oh, delete this. I don't feel like taking a survey now.
yeah,
But that is a great time to be able to capture, especially to your point within a chat or whatever, where you can just really drop the link or tell them exactly where to go, and they can just do it then and there. So
yeah.
that's really neat. What are some other ways that customers are motivating folks to leave reviews, or take photos, like user generated content, things like that? I'm seeing a lot more of that when I get review updates now within Google.
Yeah.
So, what about on the photo side, especially from a positive perspective?
So I think there's a lot of businesses that are incentivizing it. I think social media can be a great driver for that. Especially if you use platforms like Instagram. If you can use that with your business and make it something that just people do, they share photos of their food. They
Hmm.
share photos of their experience with you. If you make that a regular thing, it makes it easier for them to think of that on their own. You can also prompt them for that, right? Like if you're already chatting with them, you can ask them like, "Hey, like, do you mind uploading a photo at the same time, or tell us more about your experience? What was your favorite thing about your meal? Yeah, like, what did you have? Did you have a cocktail? Stuff like that." You can lead
Hmm.
them to provide more information, And we are seeing that the more thorough and valuable your reviews are, the more of an impact it does have on your ability to rank. So you don't want just someone leaving 5 stars and not saying anything. Else you don't
Right.
want someone saying great experience and that's it. You want them to provide more information. And I think like there's some tools out there that are working on that too. I know I've talked to the guys at Gather Up a few times, and they're always looking for new ways to encourage reviewers to provide more information about their experience.
How integrated, you had mentioned that you probably don't want to hire somebody to work full time, like doing like your posts
Mm-hmm.
within not Search Console, with Google My Business. And then you've also mentioned, utilizing Instagram and tools that people are naturally using when they go somewhere, right? Everyone's
Mm-hmm.
taking a picture of their food, or the car getting worked on, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
How integrated are you on the local side with the social media teams that clients are using, or do you handle social media internally as well and integrate on the agency side there too?
I don't, but I feel like that's a missed opportunity for a lot of people in the local space. On my way home today, my kid's dentist office had a sign outside that said, "Follow us on TikTok." This is a
Uh-huh.
pediatric dentistry, and they're asking people to follow them on TikTok, and they have a great local presence. Like, I am impressed by this dental. They definitely have someone who knows a lot about digital marketing on their team, but like they're utilizing every tool they have to make as big of a brand presence, right? A local presence as they can. And I think there's a lot of missed opportunities on using digital PR and social media with your local SEO strategy to grow brand awareness and local awareness as well. I think like especially I think part of it though is just seeing social media as a tool for SEO. I think a lot of times we see them
Mhm.
as two completely separate things, but they can inform each other. Like your social media
It's
team is
true.
getting extremely useful data. Your SEO team is getting extremely useful data, and it's giving you data about who your customers are, like how do they find you, why they like you, what they're interested in, and all of that could be working together to improve your social media and your SEO as well, and paid ads as well. Like all of it could be um, more holistic for sure.
See, now I have to check out and see if our dentist has a TikTok account or not, and what they're doing on there. Um, but that is really interesting. And one thing I have noticed is the word of mouth marketing is incredibly useful within the world of local as well, right?
Hmm.
Whether it's reviews or whether it's a conversation happening on Nextdoor,
Right.
on local Facebook groups, things like that. So the more branding you can do on a local level,
Hmm.
whether it is starting up well, before you start up a TikTok account, make sure you're going to keep it up all the time, right? But
Yeah.
um, if you are starting up TikTok, doing some fun things like that, I see. Okay, we had a really when my son was young, we had a really bad experience at a dentist,
Mm.
and they were pediatric. They had TVs on the walls everywhere. They had SpongeBob stuff everywhere. They had TVs on the ceiling. They had aquariums, and it was walking in like it was like walking into to Disneyland to get your teeth work done. But we
Hmm.
had a bad experience with the dentist themselves, not the scenario, but the dentist. So whenever and I'm reminded of that whenever someone on my local neighborhood Facebook page asks, who's a good pediatric dentist in the neighborhood? And everyone
Yeah.
recommends that one
Hmm.
because they have a giant frog outside. I think they're called Smiling, some kind of animal name. And then like I said, SpongeBob everywhere, and the parents love it. They have Wi-Fi, but no
Hmm.
one, no one, when they make the recommendations, no one's like, oh, they did a great dental job, right? Everyone's like, oh, the Wi-Fi there is amazing. Oh, this is great. So it is kind of interesting to your point, by getting more integrated into what someone's doing social, getting that out there on Google. So if someone is doing a query, maybe they're less, maybe, if I'm looking for something, especially, hey, where's a great place for dinner that's fun? Where's a great place
Hmm.
for to have a conversation? Where's a great loud area? Like maybe if I am looking for a sushi place where everyone's loud and yelling and this and that, have that. If you can communicate that within posts, within pictures, within videos on the profile, that someone's not going to go sit there for 30 minutes to an hour bored, right?
Yeah.
Someone's going to be in a great environment when they're visiting either your pediatric dentistry or your sushi shop or your izakaya. Then, hey, what better place to be able to communicate that if you're already communicating it on social? Make sure you communicate it in Google as well. One thing that you had mentioned that was a big change in 2021 was integration of ads or different, maybe more ad opportunities within
Yeah.
Google Local. Could you go into that a little bit as well?
Yeah, so LSA or local search ads is not a big part of what I do, but it is becoming a bigger part of the just local SEO landscape and search results. You can see them; they pop up at the top of the page. They show up in the Google Maps app now. They show up on mobile, so they're becoming a bigger thing. And then they have these certifications, or like for a Google Trusted or some type of certification just to show that Google trusts this company for the service.
Yes.
And it's limited to specific industries. And it became essentially overnight something that pretty much everyone jumped onto because if their
This is
competitor
very
is there,
top
yeah,
of the results too.
exactly. And
Even
it
before
has,
local.
yeah. And if your competitors are there, then like you're going to bet that your client's going to ask you why they aren't there too. So that's definitely become a bigger thing. And that ties back into reviews because your reviews are right there too. So even if you are paying for those ads and you're doing your best to be in the top 3, so you're showing right up there in front of the bar at the top of the page before everything else. If you have a 3.5 and your competitors have 4.9s, you're still at a loss because you're going to get less clicks than your competitors who are up there. And I've seen that happen where businesses are focused on getting there instead of getting their reputation correct. And I talk to my clients about this all the time, that your reputation, like, there's very little benefit of being in the local pack if you're the only one that has no reviews or a low rating. You need to get that rating up so that you can justify getting those conversions, because without that, people are going to say, I don't know about that place. I can see this guy has a 4.8. I think I'm just going to click on them first or call them first.
Right.
I don't need to take a chance on this one who has a 3.2 or something like that. Yeah, just like it's interesting how a lot of these things kind of tie in together, especially with the ads. I see that being a bigger thing. And I know that being able to see products from local businesses too has become a larger thing. I'm wondering if there's going to be some type of paid products specifically for Google business profiles that shows up in Google Maps that's going to come up soon too. Like you can easily find like popular products at stores like Target in the Google business profile now. But it's not like a really like a huge thing. I think Target is one of the main retailers where I see it. I think Target, Walmart, some of the really big competitors have it, but hasn't really trickled down to smaller companies yet. And I'm curious as to how that's going to change things as well as paid for maps becomes a bigger thing.
It's a really good point, because how many smaller companies are running a Google Merchant Center feed, right? For maybe they have 2 or 3 businesses, or maybe they don't have that much of an online presence outside of their brick and mortar. So
Yeah.
having that Merchant Center feed is that head start. Having that infrastructure on the site saying, hey, this item is in stock at this specific location and that specific location is a head start. It's a differentiation point. Sure, you can go ahead and you can manually add products in or something along those lines. But I mean, when you see that, hey, the Best Buy down the street has an Xbox S in stock, you're going to be there in no time, right?
Yeah.
Hold it. BOPIS, buy online, pick up in the store. I'll be right there shipping. Get it curbside. It's a whole different world from that perspective in local. Where do you see local going in 2022, given that we've had all of these different changes, all of these hyper changes that have been integrated? Like it really does seem, I mean, 2021 was a year of Google updates, not just the summer of Google updates or the August, September, October, November, December of Google updates, for the year. And And a lot of the conversation is around things like core, your money or your life, things like that. But
Hmm.
it's been going on across the board. Like
Yeah.
I talked about Merchant Center a little bit earlier. Like the amount of shopping and Merchant Center stuff that I'm seeing coming through, like free clicks, organic clicks, is through the roof, especially during
Hmm.
holiday shopping season. But it's sticking. So
Hmm.
a lot of these updates have been very aggressive, very quick, and it's
Yeah.
been just kind of like it doesn't matter, just push out the update.
Hmm.
Where do you see this going? What do you want to see happen in 2022? How are you preparing for certain trends? And what do you definitely want to see, or what do you expect coming from Google and even Bing or Apple this year? Because I think we talk about Google a lot, right,
Yeah.
as a default. But
Hmm.
I was setting up Bing places yesterday. I was like, wow, I can import all this from my Google My Business profile. It's amazing. So
Yeah.
where do you see all those? Where do you see all those going?
I'm hoping to see from Apple like more competitiveness, right? Because they depend on, I think, Yelp a lot for
Mhm.
data. I think they can get their own thing going if they wanted to. I know that's been something that they've been considering. I've seen some articles about that they've been considering having a alternative with their own data. So is that going to be ready this year? Probably not. I would think not, but I think it's eventually coming. I can, especially with things like I recently got a new car, and one of the things I have in it is Apple CarPlay. So when I'm in
Oh
my
yeah.
car, I can look at restaurants that are near me, and they're showing me the Yelp data right now. So they're showing all this third party data, and they're losing so much information by sending me to Yelp instead of having that
It's
information that
true.
they can capture after that. Yeah, so like it would be like for them, it would benefit if I could if they could keep me in their platform so where they can get the most information from me. And that's actually where I see things going with Google. I can't remember who said it, but I saw a tweet from someone saying that for local, the search results page is going to be your homepage. It's going to be your landing page. Um,
It's
and I'm
almost gotten there.
Yeah, there are more and more features from your website that either Google's automatically pulling in from your website,
Yep.
automatically pulling in from third-party sites, or they're pulling from what you put in the Google Business Profile. And I see that becoming more of a thing. I can see Google trying to make it a process where they technically don't have to go to your website at all. I mean, with calls, they already don't have to. But if I can see it getting more in that direction, where someone may be able to get through the entire conversion, start to finish, from your business profile. Maybe
Mhm.
not in 2022, if they're going to keep being as aggressive as they've been. Maybe we will see it by December, but I think that's something that's going to eventually happen, whether we want it to or not, because that's so much data and information that is useful for them. And hopefully, when that does happen, Google Business Profile can support it from a data perspective. Because right now it's not great. That's actually one of the things I want to see. I want to see better data for businesses that depend on local.
Yeah.
And yeah, in Google Analytics, like sure, if you set up UTM tracking, you can see some useful information. But I would like to see more information about your Google Business Profile data, and it be a bit more accurate as well. Like map views, search views, and things like that. The metrics that Google gives us right now are not very useful,
No.
not very accurate. If Google knows that someone sent you a text message or a call and it came from that Google Business Profile, it would be great to be able to qualify if it was a lead from that. Like, oh, this call was over 2 minutes. That we know this is a lead. Especially, yeah. So it would be just nice for it to become more integrated and more useful. Because right now we're attributing things to Google because Google Maps, because we can see kind of like the pipeline once they hit the website and what they've done once they've gone to the website. But it would be great for the Google Business Profile itself to be more of a something that provides more data for us to use and make better decisions as to what we need to be doing in local.
We have some questions coming in, but I'm
Hmm.
going to vent about something for a second before I get started. And oh,
Go
by the
for it.
way, I'd also like to shout out our this is the first SEJ show of 2021. or 2020, what year is it? 2022, by the way, sorry. and we have a new sponsor, InMotion Hosting. So we'll be talking about them in the audio feed, but I'd like to give a shout out to our sponsors, InMotion Hosting and SEMrush, for making today's show possible. Also, what you're saying about Google Local bringing in data, like, yeah, I've been in the situation where you're updating your hours on the website, you forget to do it in your Google My Business profile. Suddenly you get pinged, hey, hours have updated. Can you confirm? And they're pulling everything in from the website. And then as you were talking about that, the parallels between what's going on with Google Business profiles, bringing in that data, and with featured snippets, right? Because one thing that I've been personally dealing with over the past year is an increase in Google local visibility for some queries that the client that I work with has, which is fantastic. However, a lot of the time that increase in visibility, meaning the map and the local pack results, is occurring where we already rank on the front page, right?
Mm-hmm.
So suddenly it's there, and then suddenly in the results it will say, and this is for a non-branded keyword, it will say, oh, keyword appears on the site, right? So Google's crawling the site. They're picking up the terms, they're picking up the content, they're cross-referencing the query with the content that's on the landing pages that are associated with the company, and then serving the company's local results above the results, right? The thing is that when people see that, they click, and that UTM is associated with Google Local, right? Or Google My Business. And then we're looking at the results and we're saying, there's a decrease in organic, but an increase in Google Local.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily an issue yet, but how do you combat that in the future and utilize that data to tell the story to the client and get their buy-in on that? Like, hey, look, this is not a loss. This is direction Google is going into. And you touched upon this a little bit earlier. People are making phone calls. People are making their decision to go to the location without even clicking on the website now. So really connecting the dots. So in your experience, how do you utilize that data to build that narrative for the client, to really educate them on the changes that are happening and get buy-in for what's happening in the world of local?
Yeah. So I always ask myself a few specific questions when I'm putting together recommendations or like findings for a client. And it's like, what's happening, why it's important for you specifically, and how do we mitigate any issues that it causes? And I like to back it up with their data, right? Screenshots. This is what's happening. This is what your website says is happening. This is what the industry says is happening. So I will go to a third-party site. Of course, I love Sterling Sky. Shout out to them because they do a lot of case studies. They do a lot of interesting things. Or I go to Search Engine Journal. I'll look and see like where can I find information about these changes where I can say like, yeah, there's some weird things going on. You're right. Like we're seeing it too, right? And we can attribute it to these things that we know Google's testing. And then give them some type of peace of mind, right? These are the things that we can do to help mitigate loss in traffic if there is a loss in traffic because something is changing. Here are the specific issues that we found that we can create a solution for that may be attributing to this issue. Or here are some things that other SEO experts are doing right now to help their clients who are experiencing similar problems. And I think a lot of times, especially with local right now, things are so crazy and change so much that there's a lot of uncertainty as to like, hey, I was number one the other day and now I've dropped. I don't see any logical reason for that to happen, right? Like I was in the local pack, now I'm not. I don't know why. There is no reason. Yeah. And just being able to back up, like justify what you're working on now, the impact of those things, the value of those things, and how they are essentially timeless. Like if we're doing the right things, we're doing the right things, no matter what Google's testing at that point in time. If we continue to build quality content that's relevant and important, if we continue to build links from locally relevant sites or high authority sites, if we continue to make sure that our Google My Business listings are are accurate within Google's guidelines, up to date, and have some engagement on them. Like we're responding to reviews, we're doing regular posts, we have questions and answers filled out, we have photos in it. Then we're doing all the right things to see everything move in the right direction. And then if for some reason you're doing all of those things and something is still not working out, there is likely a technical issue that's causing it. I've seen some things where for some reason some pages are in the sitemap they've been marked as disallow, and no one, and that's the reason why they weren't ranking all of a sudden. Who did it, why it happened, and no one knows. And things like that, and just making sure that you're taking care of your site from a technical perspective too, because I feel like a lot of times, especially with local SEO, and the focus on reviews and things like that, we can forget about the technical elements or not be as confident in our ability to handle them. And and I think it's like that's perfectly normal, but I think that's a place where a lot of technical local SEOs can grow. And that's one of the things that I think I really learned from being at Locomotive was my previous agency, because they are a technical SEO agency, is to think more technically, to look at the data more closely, to justify the recommendations, and to be confident in why we're recommending that, and having the data and the third party information from trusted sources as to why we're doing things. I think a lot of the times with clients, it just comes down to like their ability, their confidence that you know what you're doing, and then your confidence in your ability to explain why you're doing what you're doing, no matter what Google's doing. Unfortunately, there's some people who will never be happy, no matter how hard you work, no matter what results you get. You could give them they'll find a reason to be unhappy, but most clients I find are happy as long as they feel like they can trust you with the health of their business. So as long as you're working on building that trust constantly and consistently, and showing it through your reporting and your deliverables, you should be in a good spot, no matter how rocky things might get in 2022.
I agree. And I really like the balance of technical and creative when it comes to SEO and when it comes to local, right? Because a couple of things that came to my mind is that, there's a client that I've worked with for quite a while that's their beauty school chain. And one of the ways that we got the jump on the national competition, they're only within a few states, the national competition, is that on their local campus pages, we wrote about things like, where students can go and get lunch in the area, and directions, as if you saw someone on the street and you asked, hey, how do I get there? Oh, go down here and it's right across the street from Whataburger and up, whatever. And that's the kind of like true language that it just seems like Google really loved at the end of the day, because it is kind of it's guides to what people are looking for. Now, one thing I did notice is that we wrote that, and about 6 months later or 9 months later, I got an email saying, hey, you know what? We're not across from Whataburger anymore. That's not a Whataburger. That's a Taco Cabana now, or something like that, right? And we're like, oh, and then I was doing a site crawl, and we actually linked out to some of the like places in the neighborhood, right, to link out to their pages. And I was doing a site crawl, and I'm seeing these external links are 404, and I'm like, oh my God, all of these like local stores that we were talking about, a lot of them were shut down in the past year. So just making sure that you do have that balance, right, from a technical perspective and a creative perspective. And then one more question I have for you, before we get into some of our viewer and listener questions, is how the photo section that you have within your Google business profile or Google My Business, it's going to be hard to make that change, calling it one or the other. How should people be hiring photographers to go in and take those photos and making everything look nice? Or is it better to have kind of like real life? Like if I go to TripAdvisor, I do not look at the hotel pictures that the hotels have uploaded. I look at the pictures that people staying there have uploaded, right?
Yeah.
So how important is it to populate that? And what are any recommendations you have on that side? Is video as important as it should be? Or can people live with photos alone, et cetera, et cetera?
I'm thinking it's going to depend a lot on the industry. I think that
Mhm.
like I would like for resorts and things like that. I think video is a great idea. I had a client before that did tattoo removal. Video is a great idea for that, right? So
Oh,
because
I
people want to
imagine.
see
Yeah.
the process. I think you should have a mixture of both. Your website should avoid stock images as much as possible. So if you can have a photographer come in and take photos of your business to be used, that's great. And then use those photos as well on your Google business profile because great. Now you have two uses for those photos, so you can use them again. You can also use those photos in your Google posts in the future as well. And then that gives you a lot of different uses and hopefully helps you kind of see the value of that. And especially if you're focusing on social media already, you should have a lot of good quality photos as well from that can be used and put into Google business profiles. But I think for a lot of industries, having those user generated photos is extremely important as well. Um, I think with hotels and things like that, I think that could be a little difficult getting those good photos. I can see it being
Yeah.
very easy for people to be upset about a room and put a post a photo, but being excited about one. To me, that has a lot to do with messaging and branding. If your brand does that, if you make photography a big part of your brand, if you make like ocean views from rooms a big part of your brand and someone goes in their room and looks out and they see that, you're more likely to get those types of reviews that include those things because they're like, oh yeah, this is what I expected because this is what you told
Mhm.
me to expect and now I see it for myself. Like having that having them parrot it back to you essentially, that's a good way to get those types of photos. And then encouraging that engagement because of what you're doing on social media and other platforms as well. um, I would think it would be a great idea. I imagine there's resorts and hotels that do this, but having some type of thing in the room where it's like, hey, take a love your room, take a photo and put it on Google or
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like love the view, take a photo and put it on. We want to see it, like include it in your Google review, and things
Yeah.
like that, to encourage that. And I think a lot of times, like some of those one place will be extremely successful doing something like that, and then another place will not be successful, and we will have no idea why some tactics work for one business and not for another. But I would go with like try anything, especially if you're in an industry where photos are extremely important and reviews
Mhm.
are extremely important, and you're struggling to keep up with competitors or bigger brands who have like the budget to spend a ton of money on social media and marketing and things like that.
You bring up some good points. Most places that I go to, the only way they encourage people to take photos is they have like those wings on the wall. So you can take a picture standing in front of wings and put it on Instagram.
Yeah.
Or like a hotel I just went to the other week had like a big like rainbow prism thing that you can stand. I mean, there's people like in line taking pictures, or like a giant beach chair, right? And it's
Yeah.
funny. You sit in the beach chair, you look like you're a baby. But I didn't see any of those. A lot of those had the Instagram tags on them. I didn't see any of those saying, "Hey, don't forget to leave a review on Google. Don't forget to
Hmm.
upload on Google, whatever it
Hmm.
may be." Right. So that's a
Yeah.
really good point on that end. We have some questions coming through YouTube. Some of our viewers that are on YouTube and LinkedIn Live right now, along with Facebook. The first question from Sarah comes in and says, if we're looking to set up UTM tracking, is there a company or platform that you recommend to do that with? How do
Uh,
you recommend setting up UTM tracking for
So,
local?
shameless plug for a great local SEO, Claire Carlisle. She has a UTM tracking spreadsheet that she created to help you put those together, not only for your website, but also for Google Posts and things like that as well. So it makes it much easier to do. And also, that's something I should have added before. If you are doing Google Posts, make sure you set up UTM tracking so you can track that traffic coming to your website from that link to your from the Google Posts themselves. I'll see if I can. Are
I'm
you
gonna
trying to find?
drop this right now.
Okay.
Yeah. Claire Carlisle, Claire's Guide to UTM Tagging for Google Business Profiles GMB with free Google Sheet Auto Generator. I'm going to drop this in the chat right now. So, Sarah, over on YouTube, you should be getting this immediately. So should all of our viewers everywhere else that are live. And if you have any questions and you're watching live right now, if you're listening a week later, you're not going to be able to ask a question. But if you're, well, you can on Twitter, I guess. But if you're live right now, go ahead and ask questions. And we have quite a bit that have come in, especially preparing. Oh, you're welcome, Sarah. Sarah says thank you. So that's awesome. I love live interaction during these shows. I think it's the greatest thing ever. A question that came up as well is link building, right?
Mm-hmm.
Should local SEOs or local businesses be building links to their Google profile or their Google Maps pages, or should they be trying to, well, maybe not build, but acquire links or set or get links to their landing pages hosted on their site? What are your recommendations there from a link building perspective?
Landing pages for sure. You should be getting those links to your website, and particularly to your landing page. And if you have concerns about your domain as a whole, get some to the homepage as well. That would be my focus, for sure. I think I've seen that before. I actually worked at an agency where we tried that tactic, and we did not see that there was any huge difference or improvement in our rankings from building links to the business profile versus to the website. So firsthand experience, I would say, I would focus on building links to the website, especially to that landing page and the homepage versus to the business profile.
Niraj asks a question, a statement and a question. They've noticed that their competitors are doing a lot of keyword stuffing in their Google My Business profiles, and it's working, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they've tried editing the name, which you can do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they've also reported it to Google as keyword stuffing. Do you recommend? I mean, what like it? If you're a business owner or if you're a consultant or agency and you're continuously reading, hey, you should not do this,
Mm-hmm.
or you're continuously telling your client, hey, you should not do this, and someone starts doing it
Mm-hmm.
and it's working. Do you have any recommendations on what to do there besides wait it out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say something controversial. So, if it's working for them and you're a legitimate business trying to make money and feed your family, and you are not concerned about your listing getting taken down, and everyone else is doing it and getting away with it, if you're willing to try risking getting your listing taken down by Google, I would say go for it. Like it's, yeah. Is it the smartest decision to make? No. Is there a chance that your listing can get taken down by Google? Absolutely. Is it something that I would tell my clients to do? No. Is it something that I would ever recommend to someone I need personally to do? No. But am I going to be able to stop someone who's like, I need leads and I don't know what else to do? I can't. And when I do have a client like that will just not listen to me, what I tell them to do is like, okay, these are the risks of going along. Google can take your listing down. They can just change your name. They can suspend your Gmail account from having any business profiles on it altogether. I have seen this. This has happened to me. Yeah. Yeah. I worked for an agency where we did some like lead gen Google My Business listings. And they created an entire network of Gmail accounts just for housing different Google My Business listings. And when Google found out, they took away all of them. Like they were able to trace them back and see the relationship, and they took them all down. So there's a lot of risk involved. I can see Andy Simpson say, do a DBA.
I saw that.
Yeah, that is really smart.
I saw that.
That's a really good idea. Yes, do a DBA. I didn't even think about that, but I have recommended that in the past. Is like legally change your name, have the sign outside your store or place, have that as their business name. Yeah, put that as the name on your business door. If you want to protect yourself, that's the best way to do it. Change the logo on your website to include that name. If you can change your signage outside to include it. If you can have your business name say it. That way, if you get questioned by Google, you have a lot of Yeah, you have a lot of proof to back yourself up, because what they look for is they look at signage. I've had this happen to me before when I've had listings suspended. They've asked me for signage. They're like, "Can you show me, or can you show me the outside of your building with this business
Hmm.
name on it?" That's also what they do when you video verify a location as well. So this is the same process they use for video verification. Yeah,
Mm.
they want signage. They want to see a vehicle with a wrap on it if you have one. They want to see business cards or letterheads if you have them. So as much evidence that you can provide that this is a legitimate business name for you. And then part of it is too as well. It's the Google guideline says use the business name as your customers know it, right? Like that. So like if you're known as this company, but it's technically not your business name, you can probably get away with it. So like I would just say like thank you, Andy, for bringing that up because I forgot. I didn't even think
Great
about
tip.
that. But yeah, but just kind of bulletproof your business from a Google's perspective that if they look at your street view, the sign matches. If they look at your website, the sign matches. So whatever you have on your Google business profile needs to match what's on your website, needs to match your signage. And if you do decide to go that route and change your business name, make sure you update your like citations and major sites to like Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and all of that so that they match as well.
We are DBA, the best tacos in Santa Clarita, California. Right? Done. Have it on the wall, have it on the cards, have it on the t-shirts, everywhere. It makes sense. It makes sense to me.
Yeah,
And it is a great way to CYA, right? Just make sure like if Google ever does try to go after you,
yeah.
that you have yourself covered, that you're fine. Excellent tip. Excellent tip. I didn't even realize it, but we're almost at the hour mark. We did have one more question coming in that I wanted to take some time for.
Okay.
So the question is, this specific company does not have a brick and mortar location. Should they still be building a Google business profile?
If you service clients within that a specific geography, you can take phone calls. You go to their house or place of business. You should meet the guidelines for having a Google business profile. Google has those guidelines on their website in Webmasters, I think that's or support. And you can find it. And if you are a legitimate business, if you service a specific area and you just want to hide the address, and you're not doing it in a sketchy way, like setting up 10 Google business profiles with service area listings, you're fine. I think that's a missed opportunity for a lot of businesses. I also find that there's a lot of businesses who don't realize when they have a business within a business. If you're located
Mm,
in, I had a client who was located inside Walmart, right? They had their signage in the Walmart. They had
yeah,
like their own phone number, everything had no
like a nail
listings.
salon or like
Yeah,
a pretzel shop or something like that.
yeah, no
Yeah.
listings inside any of the
Hmm.
Walmarts whatsoever. So
Oh
instead
wow.
of having 30 plus locations, they only had two. And yeah, all over, they could have had locations all over the state, and it never crossed their mind that they could have that. And just, yeah, be aware of opportunities like that. Especially practitioners, right? Like if you are
Hmm.
a dental practice with multiple locations and multiple practitioners, if you're like CPAs and you have multiple providers there, there's a lots of different businesses where you can have more than one listing. Car dealerships kind of they get everything, so they get away with everything. They can have listings for service department versus sales department, versus
Hmm.
parts and everything
They sure
else.
can.
Yeah, so just make
Um,
sure that you take advantage of as much as you can because you can't rank in Google Maps without a Google business profile. So if you
yeah.
serve a specific area, you have a phone number where people can reach you, and you actually do provide a service and you're a legitimate business, and you just want to have one service area listing, I would say go for it. There's no harm there. And all you're going to do is see some great growth. Every time I've seen someone go from no Google no Google business profile to a Google business profile, or even just adding one additional one or anything like that. There's a huge amount of growth because essentially you've just made yourself visible to lots of people that didn't even know you existed before. because there you are in Google Maps where you never had them before in that location.
It's very true. I know that ATM banks have done that for years with ATMs.
Yes.
Right. And Starbucks. Like once I even drove to a Starbucks, like I was looking for the closest Starbucks and navigation took me to the airport because there was a Starbucks in the airport. It's ridiculous. But yeah, so I dealt with this when I was working with a Halloween costume company years back where like they had a little tiny kiosk in all of these different stores. And we're like, hey, if ATMs can do it, and I think Coinstar machines, I see Coinstar machines listed in Google Maps as well, because somehow they fall within almost being like similar to an ATM. And how come we couldn't do it? So I'm glad to hear that there's more of that happening, right? Because it is real, especially with I know our local Macy's. There's a Toys R Us popping up in our local Macy's in the same way that Sephora is within JCPenney, right?
Right.
As you have these traditional larger real estate, these companies that are locked into these long-term real estate deals in the malls, trying to monetize themselves by leasing out, subletting out their space. That Sephora better be there. That Toys R Us or that Potbelly in the Macy's better be there, right?
Yeah.
So that's a really good tip. Amanda, thank you so much for jumping on today. Thank you so much for being our first guest of 2022. I got the year right this time. Our first guest of 2022. I hope it's a good year. What do you think? Think it's gonna be a good year?
I have a new niece as of yesterday, so I think it's going to be a great year. Maybe not for my sister. She's not going to get a lot of sleep, but great year for me.
That's great. Well, I'll let you get back to helping your sister set up the nursery and everything else. It's really been a pleasure having you on today. It's a great way to kick off the year. First week of 2022. We have a lot more guests coming up over the course of this year. If you do have any recommendations, if you're viewing or listening, first of all, make sure if you're viewing to like us on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube. If you're listening, make sure you like, rate, and review us in the Apple Store or the Apple podcast app or on Google Play. And again, check out Amanda. We've dropped links to you on your LinkedIn profile, on your Twitter profile. Could you tell everyone that's listening where they can find you on Twitter so they can connect?
Yeah. You can find me on Twitter at Amanda T. Jordan. So any questions about anything that I mentioned, or if maybe you have a unique local SEO issue, feel free to reach out.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Amanda. Congrats on the move to RicketyRoo, by the way. I've been like for a while, really, really nice guy. I love what he's doing. I love what you all are doing with the branding and the hat and everything else that you have going on. So amazing stuff. And thanks again for dropping in and joining me in today's conversation. So thank you so much. Thank you to all of our listeners. Have a great year. And this has been our first show of 2022. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Search Engine Journal Show. If you liked this episode, subscribe to our channel for so much more and click the notification bell so you don't miss a thing.